Hey, what's up, everybody? Larry Sanders from the Twin Hickory office. Today we've got three very special people from Hometown Realty. We've got Mike Chenault, we've got Rodney Chenault, and we've got Cindy Overton. They're going to share some personal stories, a little bit about their history at Hometown, things they love about Hometown, and they're going to drop some knowledge from there. So the second part's going to be advice whether you're new to the industry or you're a veteran in the industry. Hope you enjoy everything that comes from here, and appreciate y'all's support. So without further ado, we will start everything today, ladies first, Cindy style. And so again, with a panel discussion, it'll seem like I'm asking some questions, but really we're going to hear a variety of answers from three different people, and we'll start off with basic history, right, Cindy? Okay. Like, hey, where did you go to school? A bit about your family, what you do at your office, what office you work out of, stuff like that.
So I'm the oldest in the family, and Hometown didn't exist when I came along. So I went to UVA, got a degree in accounting from the Commerce School, worked in public accounting. I'm so old that back then it was the Big 8. I think now it's the Big 1 or the Big 2, but it was the Big 8. Did that for a few years, worked in financial reporting for a few years. Then I started having my children, Sarah and her sister Rachel, and I was lucky enough to get to stay home after that. I was your room mom, team mom, church volunteer, did all that for 20 plus years, up until 2012. Mike comes to me in 2012, is like, you can't be room mom anymore, you need to join the family business. I intentionally stayed away because, you know, we talk about, some people get into it thinking, but I mean, they think it's easy. They think, oh, it just happens. They see what these guys are doing. I knew it wasn't easy, and I knew I had certain skills and didn't have other skills, but came on in 2012 and started on Mike's team, working on Mechanicsville office. I did sales, I did new construction. I was the active adult specialist and the tri-level specialist at Mechanicsville. Seems like that's what came my way.
Tri-level's still a good mark.
And then about 3 years in, we needed a manager in Mechanicsville, and that definitely fits my skill set. And so Mike asked me to be manager, and I've been doing that. Mechanicsville, Oaklawn, Tappahannock. Now I'm doing more general admin as well, helping with all the offices and stuff like that. Is that good?
That's perfect. And to illustrate, I have not been in Hometown a long time. I've been here since 2007. I just learned 4 or 5 things that I never knew about Cindy. So that's kind of part of what we're trying to do today before we get into some advice and stuff like that. How about you, Rod? Same formula, baby.
I'm a Taurus. Okay, so I went to Lee Davis High School. We all went to Lee Davis. County School, so yeah. But I went to University of Richmond. Got out of there in May of '91. Had to go through all the classes. Back then, getting your real estate license took a little bit longer. You had to go to a class forever, and when you took the exam, you had to wait like 30 days to find out whether you passed it. Wow. Not the old automated one. It was like the SAT. You had to fill in the dots, and they set it off. So I got licensed like September of '91. That whole summer, I was the only other job I've ever had was working for my dad, working on a framing crew. So I framed houses, realized that was a whole lot harder than selling houses. So I started September of '91. Mike was already 3 years into the business at that point. He helped me a lot. I used to go on appointments with him, and he would help me out. And so as far as advice to a new agent, I'd say 50% of something better than 100% of nothing. But I was at the Mechanicsville office. Our original office, well, the original one was down by the Windmill Bank in Old Mechanicsville. By the time I got into the business, that was '88. By the time I got in, we were next to Calabash and the Midway Lounge right there next to Lee Davis High School. So I was in that office, and then I guess a big move for us at the time, we built the big Mechanicsville office that we have now. That was what, 94 or 5? 95. So Dean had just started in the business in '95, and we moved over there. And I was only there about 2 years, and we decided to have the Atlee office. So Dean and I went over to King's Charter office buildings right there at the front of King's Charter, and we rented in there for about 2 years. About a year, then we started building our own office. Right there, we called that the Atlee office. And we moved in there in '99, and I was there managing that office from '99 till we built this one July of '05. Believe it or not, we've been in this building since July of '05. And I moved over here. Because I went to University of Richmond, and for a second I was considering going to law school. I was a political science major, so therefore Mike claims that I'm the head of the legal team.
He's not lost the case.
So I guess my role, I run this office, but I get to touch all the problems that we have in all the offices. Again, that's kind of trial and error. I just kind of work my way through it. I'll call Joe Perini and say, hey Joe, what about this? Use Joe Perini for your closings because he's good and he offers a lot of free advice to us. So we need to help him back. Let's see, as far as, what am I missing there?
That's a slam dunk, man. That's a slam dunk. You hit the nail on the head.
Oh, I have 2 kids. My son Jack has just started in real estate. And my daughter Courtney is up in Arlington, working up there. She went to the University of Richmond also. Just went to Randolph-Macon. And for years I coached him in sports, and I play golf. That's my hobby.
You did a good job because I saw Jack's name on some billboard out of the ball field not long ago.
Oh, yeah.
It hadn't been that bad.
State champion.
Bring some, baby. Bring some.
All right, let's see. I graduated from Lee Davis High School back when it was Lee Davis High School. 1988, I graduated from Hampton City College. Seems like a long time ago. I knew I was gonna get in the real estate business, which makes me like the weirdest one in the room. I got my license in between my junior and senior year of college. The guy that did the class was Boyd Smith. He's still involved in real estate. Boyd is probably 75-ish, maybe, more than 75. Yeah. And when I see him, he still says, how's Miller time? Because me and a friend of mine took that class together, and we got a large pepperoni pizza and 2 pitchers of beer at Mosley Flint University. On our break, we had an hour-and-a-half break, and we walked.
Whole Street.
It was on Whole Street. Yeah, the university was on Whole Street. And he would say, "Hey, how's Miller time?" I said, "Good." So it wasn't very hard to get in the real estate business then. I think the test must be harder today because I think fewer people fail back then. But I think the test is kind of geared to how people were taught and how they thought back in the 80s. The math, for some of you younger people that just took it, the math is old math that's on the test today, where I don't think the young people see math set up like that. It's probably what's a little bit challenging. Started and got in the business right out of the gate, didn't know any better, but I was told that it was like a big Easter egg hunt, and all you had to do was find somebody that wanted to sell, and you got a bunch of money, which is gonna be a lot better than a lot of other things I could do. And I used to dial, and see back then dialing for a lot of people is very awkward, but back in the 80s and the 90s, people dialed. The whole world dialed. Cold calling was just a way of life, and that's why they have the thing now where you can get put on a list so you don't want people to call you, because back then it was a free-for-all, and literally I had a blue book, and it started with Adeline Lane, and it went all the way to Zorbas Lane, which was the last one in the book at the time, and it gave the address, the people's name, and a phone number for them. And then the back half of the book was numbers in phone number order, and so you could look it up that way. So if you saw a phone number, you could see where they lived. If you had an address, you could see who lived there and had their phone number. And then you could also, you know, when doing that, you got all that stuff. Then we had a map book. So the map book is something that would really blow some of y'all away. I know Ian DeSessa would never be able to function with a map book. He'd have to be driving all over the road. But literally, realtors would drive around with their map book open, looking at it. My first listing was off of Lauderdale Road, okay? I couldn't find Lauderdale Road probably today. But my first listing was Lauderdale Road, and I went 301 all the way up Parham, and then I got on Broad Street and I went all the way down. It took like 40 minutes from where my office was in Mechanicsville to get there. And I'm thinking, I'm driving in the road with my map book. And it was not a little book, it was a map book. So that's how we used to do it, right? As far as Hometown goes, my mom was the broker and I was her first agent way back when, like in '88. And then it grew a little bit slow in the beginning because it was just a different sport. And then all of a sudden we realized that it was a good job for people and we thought more people could do it. So we started bringing people in and just helping them more. And what Rodney said about getting people on board, we would say, hey, come on board, match up with somebody, and at least go on all your listing appointments with someone. Because a guy who'd taken 15 or 20 listings was probably better at getting a listing than a brand new person that's gonna go and try to do it by themselves. Today, some of my team will want me to go with them, and generally I don't do much. I just think it's kind of soothing and calming to have an old guy sitting at the end of the table that looks like he's done it. You know, I'll go and I just listen and say, wow, you know, Ariel gave a great presentation, Jake gave a great presentation, and really I don't do much, and my presentation is probably worse than ever, because I just kind of make a lot of noises and shake my head and talk about everything other than the house, which, well, it's still more of a technique. I find out what they really got on their mind. And for some people, it's ease, and you know, and some people it's fear of repairs. Some people just don't like their recently divorced ex, whatever. And so just finding out what their hot button is, and the older I get, the more I like. I used to like it when I'd go on a listing appointment and get in and out of there and have all my paperwork intact. You know, I would just go in, get out, bring it back, hand it to Tammy, and go, here, didn't even need it. We went on a listing appointment this morning, and this is how I like my listing appointments. The guy called me yesterday, said, I got 10 questions for you. Pre-qualification script, boom, 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 boom. I said, well, great, sounds like you're ahead of me and ready to go. If you leave me the key tonight, I'll go tomorrow while you're at work, and by lunchtime, we'll be ready to put this baby on the market. And he said, great. We went, we looked at it, we went through the house, gave the price, and got back in the truck, wrapped it up on the phone. Tammy's gonna send the paperwork this afternoon, and we're gonna have a sweet, sweet 460 in Rose Hill, gonna go live in 10 days. But
Everybody's got a buyer.
Everybody got a buyer there.
Always on the job.
As far as the hometown piece, my mom was the broker and I was the salesperson, which is kind of how we started, and that's just how we rolled. She put up with a lot. I was all about getting listings, and we made a lot of people mad back in the day. We were the first people that would, like on lots, everybody would just carve up lots and it'd be just a free for all. It's almost like a yard sale. They have a subdivision that anybody could buy lots. And it was, the developer would put a little sign up, call me if you want a lot. Well, once we found that out, I started going to the developer types and saying, let me handle it for you. I'll actually make it look better. I'll handle it. I'll coordinate it. I'll write all the contracts. And this is what I'll do for you. So all of a sudden, we had a handful of subdivisions where it kind of looked like we were in charge. It evolved to us being in charge. Then we started developing, Todd Rogers and I got together and started developing some land. But there was a guy named Buck Castleberry that had a lot more money and a lot more land than us. And we would find the land, Buck would put the roads in, we would sell them, and we were selling 300 houses a year, new construction, for 17 different builders back in 1995. That's why we needed an office, because we had a lot going on. We built a lot of new houses, and it used to be, we would have all the color selections sitting in the corner at 7240 Lee Davis Road, and the people would buy the house, we'd let them pick countertops, colors, whole thing, one night, write the contract, pick your colors, fill out a little sheet, and out the door you went.
He's like, visit the design center. Right over there, guys.
That's how it was, that's how it was. When Rodney got into business, we started growing a little bit, and I've worked in every office from, I was at the Mechanicsville office for a long time, I was at the Ashland office some, I was at the Carytown office some. I've kind of been everywhere. I've always maintained a desk at Lee Davis, and I have the worst carpet and paint in the building because I got more junk in there that we just can't get out, so probably never paint that. Yeah, probably never gonna paint that. And the world has evolved, and then now for me, I just see all the people that are doing such cool things at the company. For me, it's just kind of come all the way around to where it's just got, it's its own thing. And people would ask me questions about if I was this or if I was that or what would happen and things like that. Like, Hometown Realty's just rolling. I mean, if I leave tomorrow, go to Mexico and open a bar called Jack's, this place is gonna do whatever, it's just gonna keep going. We got so many great people doing things. I feel like I'm just cheering at this point. So.
Good. I think that means that you did something right, you know, if you can sit back and cheer for what you created, you know. What was it like, and Cindy, we'll come back to you, what was it like growing up in a family that was both building centric and real estate centric? Right, that's a hectic lifestyle, any way you look at it.
Yeah, well, like I said, Hometown didn't come into play till after I was out the house. So Rodney and I probably had very different childhoods. We're 6 years apart, so he saw things that I didn't see. Growing up from the construction part, the things I remember, Mom would get tired of a house plan and decide she wanted to try something different. She'd actually, take a whack at drawing up a plan and sell the house we were in. Dad would build the house plan she wanted, and we moved. So we moved a fair amount.
Gotcha.
So I remember that. I remember vacations being more spur of the moment. Dad would come home, finished up this job, let's head to the beach, kind of thing.
Like July 4th weekend.
Yeah.
That was when the hotels said no vacation.
So yeah, and they've talked about working with Dad. We were very traditional roles in our family. I didn't work on the construction crew, never asked, no, didn't do that, didn't frame. But I was at home doing stuff with Mom at home. I was thinking about them starting, so Mom got married and started having kids right out of high school. By the time she was 25, she had all three of us. And so even though she was still kind of young by today's standards, she'd been out of school a long time when she took the real estate test. I remember her studying. I remember her studying a lot. I was probably 13 when she was 15.
I was like 78 or 79.
Yeah, so I was like 15, and I remember Mom going back to school, which she was, 35 years old, so not old, but she'd been out of school that long.
Right.
So, yeah, I remember it being pretty cool, and I saw more the building side than the real estate side. I do tell recruits, when you were talking about y'all starting, one of my little lines that I use with new agents, I said, well, when they started, it was my mom, my brother, and my grandma answered the phone. I said, we were just like Mayberry. I said, that's the way we started, so, yeah.
It's so cool to, you think about a firm that's over 400 agents, so many locations all over Central Virginia, but you hear what it started as, just a basic family operation. Like,
Yep.
I think that's cool. I never thought about this either, but the difference in ages and time in business, I think, comes in handy when you're describing like what life was like. What about you, Ron?
I was the baby. But yeah, so Mike started working on my dad's construction crew before I could, because I was 12, he was 15 or whatever. But then as I got older, I had like a buddy of mine would come on the framing crew, and we got our other, anybody go to Dr. Turtle as your dentist? Dr. Turtle, he was on our framing crew as well. So we had a lot of fun at work, but we worked hard. But as far as, you know, I feel like my mom, she would sell, and I don't know, you could probably elaborate because I was younger, but I mean, she sold, my dad would build a few houses and she would sell those. And it seems like every time we ever sold our house, it was never for sale. It was like, we just found out like, hey, we sold the house. Because she just knew somebody that maybe wanted it, and then my dad had already got a lot, and one time we had to stay in Hanover Crossing Apartments, right there behind Giovanni's that was when they first opened.
And we lived with our grandmother all the time.
Oh yeah, we lived there.
Yep.
Hey, how was school today? Okay, good, pack your bags, we'll move. Okay.
So yeah, so my dad built the house, we lived there, you know, until the house that I'm in now. I never lived anywhere longer than 5 years. It was like every 3, 4, 5 years we were moving somewhere else.
Moving and shaking, that's wild, that's wild. How do you remember it, Mike? Cause you kinda had the biggest footprint of all of it, start to finish, right? Like you got to see it at its most raw stage, and then watch it all the way through where they came along at later times.
Well, real estate was different when my mother got in, and when I got in the 80s, it wasn't people like it is today, right? It was so many school teachers and PE coaches in real estate. I mean, it was rampant. The high schools had more realtors than anywhere. I mean, everybody, because the teachers' salaries they weren't keeping them in, and so a lot of those guys were involved in real estate because they had evenings and weekends to do it. It wasn't evenings and weekends business.
I thought it was going down.
It was the evenings and weekends business entirely, because people couldn't take phone calls during the day. You know, when people went to work, it was a different world. You know, a lot of men had a lunchbox. They went to a job. They went to the job. They had their snack. They had their lunch. They drank their coffee out of a thermos. And if you were in construction, that's what you did. You just kind of clocked in and they came home. So all the business was done in evenings and weekends. And that's what they told people. And then you guys, 4:30, parking lot's empty at every office we got practically. So it still is the evenings and weekends business, I think, if you want to make a lot of money. But back then it was strictly an evenings and weekends business. So my mom was mom first, helped my dad second, and then sold some houses, but it was just different, right? You had one guy that would do a lot of business, and it would be a lot of part-time agents, basically. And it was just different. So more full-time people, more professionalism today. It's just a different game. As far as my memories of construction, well, it used to be like when families did stuff, like you worked on a farm, the little kids on the farm did a lot of things you wouldn't let little kids do. Well, when my dad was framing houses, he had a little white van, he had 3 dudes, and he would take me with him a lot when I was little. Rodney said 15. We were framing a house over in Salisbury. If you guys know where Salisbury is, it was one of those big Georgians with the basement on the back. Well, back then my mom would bring the pay to everybody on Friday, and you get your pay in an envelope, and the envelope had, this is what you made, this is what your taxes, this is what your taxes, this is what you get, and you got it in cash. A lot of people dealt in cash. That's just how it worked back then. So she pulls up on the job. I'm straddling the back wall, 2 stories up with a basement, and my father's yelling at me because I'm not going fast enough to nail the ceiling joist down. Back then it was like a stick-built roof, so you did like a 2x8 across, nailed that down, and then they cut a truss or cut a rafter put like a bird mouth in it so it actually fit right on the wall, and then you had to nail it. Well, a couple guys didn't show up, cause it was Friday, and they went to the Memorial Day races where they went. I don't know how the hell I was on the job doing this, but my mother pulled up and saw me on the wall, which was like 25 feet down. I never saw her give it to my father any work. She gave it to him, took me down, put me in the station wagon, and took my butt back to mechanics school. But I used to work for $1 an hour in construction as a little child. And my first full week when I was getting $1 an hour, I mean, I thought I was cool, right? $1 an hour. And it was, I was probably 12. My father had a 6-foot red level that he just bought. It was beautiful. If you frame houses, you needed a real good level. And it was red and silver. It was Stanley. It was really, really nice piece of equipment at the time. Part of my job was clean everything up. So we get home that weekend and he's gonna do something. He looks in the truck, he goes, "Did you put that red level in the truck?" I'm like, "I didn't see it." So he gave it to me from Saturday, because it was a long way from Hanover to Salisbury back then. And he gave me the devil from Saturday all the way we pulled up on Monday morning. And we pulled up Monday morning and I stuck my head in the door and I looked at that red level was still in the corner. He goes, "You worked all week, that level cost $50. You worked all week, made $35. You're gonna work 2 days this week and then you'll be caught up on paying for the level." And that level was right there. I was like, "Oh, that's so nice." So my experience in the construction business was kind of me getting paid $1 an hour. So by the time I was 22, and most of my weekends and most of my holidays from college and my spring breaks had been planned for me to be on a construction job, I was kind of glad to start selling houses.
It was like a break.
Oh yeah, I was ready. I was ready. And I will tell you, some of y'all from Hanover may know Stuart Wells, or may have known Stuart Wells. Stuart Wells passed away a while back. He was a really nice fella. He was a realtor. Stuart was king of Mechanicsville at one time. He was selling all kinds of houses. And Stuart sold a lot of the houses that we were framing and working on. And he got a Volvo, which, if you're a little hillbilly from Mechanicsville, you never saw a Volvo in the 70s. Dude pulls up in a Volvo, and it was so hot that he would crack his window about that much. And he would kind of talk to you through the crack of the window, air conditioning going. I'm like, "I think I'm as smart as Stuart. I could probably do this." It looks like that's a better gig than this one. So that's when I made my decision to get into real estate. Standing there talking to Stuart.
Stuart had a good AC. I mean,
Yeah.
it had to be a change. What and really anybody can answer this. What is your over the years, anytime? What's your favorite hometown memory?
Well, I was thinking about that one. I've got 11 years here as a participant, a lot of years before as an observer. This is just a general feeling. I'm really proud of these guys. I've seen the highs and the lows. I know what they did to get it started. I wasn't in it when things were rough, but I know a lot of companies didn't survive. So I've just always been proud of the way these guys have stayed together, the way they've grown the company, the things they do for the community. Just in general, that I'm just really proud of them. Some fun memories that I just popped in my head. We were talking about the office next to Calabash, and Grandma was answering the phone then, and my mom was I had gone back to work, but Sarah was like 6 months old. She watched Sarah for me for the first 6 months, some at home, some at the office. So Sarah's been at Hometown Realty since she was an infant. We've got pictures of her in the car seat on the couch at that office. Once she started walking, we had to get her out of there because she was into too much stuff. So that's a fun memory. Just seeing everybody grow and stay together. But I'm just really proud of them and what they've done.
I like that you bring that up because in our business, let's say like construction, let's say commercial or residential real estate, a lot of partnerships dissolve. There's a lot of bad breakups. Some of them you hear about publicly, some of them you don't. But for 4 people that found each other at different points in life that have maintained not only true friendships, but high quality partnerships, I mean, it's almost unheard of, for this long. I feel the same way, Cindy, 100%. That's cool, good stuff. What you got?
I'll just give you like a funny story. So Long and Foster used to be called Bowers, Nelms, and Farmville. It was big, just like three of us, they had their names, kind of like the Shaheen and whatever they've got now. You've heard Mike say how we sold Pebble Creek. Pebble Creek's a big plain community in Mechanicsville. And back in the early days of Pebble Creek, we would have our Christmas party at the clubhouse. Figured, people come to the clubhouse, they get to see the neighborhood, and we'd invite other companies because, they would invite certain people because they'd come sell the houses. Had a lot of spec houses and all that. So Mike started his career, he said this before, but he started his first 6 months, or how many ever months, he was at Bowers, Nelms, and Farmville before my mom got her broker's license and was able to open Hometown. And there was, I'm not gonna give any names, but the guy who ran that office was very, long Bowers, Nelms, and Farmville guy. And I mean, that office doesn't even exist now. I don't know if you know, but the one they had on 360, that's where they were forever. That's gone. They put a little small place over in Rutland, I think. But when Mike had decided to leave and they were going to start in Hometown, the guy told Mike that was the biggest mistake of his life. So the funny part is, I don't know how many of you guys know my dad, but we're at the Christmas party, and I'll just make up a name. He goes, hey Smith, you still think Michael leaving your company is the biggest mistake you ever made? So that was pretty funny because we were all standing there and like, I guess that's a pretty proud moment. Because here he was in Pebble Creek, and we had a good thing going, and our company was growing, and his company was going the other way. So that was pretty funny. Back then, you could do that kind of stuff.
Not anymore.
I think some of my best memories were not of real estate. We used to, and we say it was easier, and it's not the same. I think everybody's just a little bit different, right? I really think all of us, the world, is just a little bit spoiled. We go to lunch all the time. We go out to eat all the time. We have, just people have so much more today than I think they had in the 70s. In the 70s, it was a lot more people living a little closer to lean and mean, right? And even though it may feel the same to some people now, it's just that Richmond is just different. And I haven't lived anywhere else, but Hanover and Richmond, more people have more than ever before in Richmond, so it's a little different. But what we used to do is we would have an oyster roast. We would have stew, and we wouldn't do this, that. We would go get a bushel of oysters, and we would steam oysters, right? We would just do it in the parking lot. We would, if I went to Nag's Head and came back with 4 tuna tenderloins, we would be chopping up tuna and blackening it for lunch over at Hanover Plaza, right on Lee Davis Road. Had a little tripod gas thing, and we'd be cooking tuna right there, right? So those kind of things are the ones that I always remember. But we did Shelton Point neighborhood. It was freezing cold. Eugene wanted to have oysters. We got in the car. I went down to Waterview, got the best oysters. I wasn't gonna get us any oysters. I went all the way to Waterview and rummaged through and got them, and we cooked oysters and had beer in a cul-de-sac. And it used to be, if you said, hey, we're gonna have oysters and beer at Shelton Point, 75 realtors from other companies would show, and then our guys would be there, and our guys would kind of be like hosting it all, And so those are the things that were probably just like, for me, just like the sweetest times, because it was just kind of enjoying it, And now, I don't know, I think the cell phone, and I was gonna say, when Larry said, not look at your screens, I was like, I'm gonna have to give mine to Benjamin. Because back then, people weren't so glued into their phone. I think they paid attention more. I think that the 3 guys sitting like in the second row here, without their phones, if they sat there 5 or 10 times, they know more about each other than with. And back then it was just a little different, a little slower. You had to drive your contracts over to see somebody, you know. And I probably recruited more realtors doing a lot of deals because I would say, hey, get out of bed and meet me at 7:30 in the morning. If you want this contract back, I'll meet you at wherever. And they said, no, I can't do it at 7:30. I'm like, you don't get it at 7:30, you don't get it, because I got a full day. I'll meet you at Hardy's parking lot, I'll buy you a biscuit, but you gotta be there at 7:30. And this lady would pull up, she'd be driving a Cadillac, have on a big blue robe, and 7:30 pull in. I'm like, well, I thought we were gonna have breakfast. She could, you know, I won't tell you who it was, but she put the window down. She goes, just give me the damn paper. But it was different because you really got to know all the characters. And here was a woman who sold a lot of houses, and I would make her meet me at 7:30 in the morning. She'd have a robe on, driving a Cadillac, meet me at the Hardee's up at Laburnum, yeah, up at Laburnum up there. You know, and it was just a different way of doing business. So.
I'm glad you answered it that way, because that's a perfect segue into the next question. I've always felt, and this is my opinion, right? I had no real estate degree or any kind of cool accolades to make me some different type of professional, but I do think that one thing we all can do is we can find a way to make real estate a lifestyle, right? Not try to get away from it, not be embarrassed by it, not feel like you're bothering people. Instead, make it a lifestyle. And what Mike just described was making real estate a lifestyle. Everything that he did, at least on the outside looking in, it sounded fun, it sounded social, but it was still intentional when it came to business and real estate. And I've tried to mimic that in most of everything I do. I even tell clients I've carved a good niche kind of partying my way to success, like throwing parties and asking people to show up and somehow getting business from it. So like when we're thinking about them out there, what are some ways that agents can make real estate a lifestyle, like in y'all's opinion?
Well, I think what you said is exactly it, because being on the outside for all those years, I was always like, why is Mike always doing something? And Mike always has people at his house, and it's never just Mike, it's Mike and people, and it's always fun. And they will tell you, I was the worst referral source ever before I, understood it, because I was
I
like,
think you have to give one to be a referral source.
well, that's true. Because I used to tell people, well, everybody who knows me knows them. And in my opinion, everybody in Hanover County knew them, because that's what I felt like. So my grandma was probably one of your best referral sources.
Oh yeah, Randy would drag him in.
Yeah, but I was the worst. And I didn't get it. And now I'm like, since I'm in the business, I'm like, oh, okay. Because Mike's always been an outgoing person, always had tons of fun, always had people around. But like you said, he was able to take that, keep the fun. He's had lots of fun doing all this stuff, but it's grown his business. So I think that's a challenge for some people, because you feel like you want to be separate. He's done a fantastic job of kind of blending it all, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, boundaries in life are important. If you're a parent, a spouse, a leader, boundaries are important. I think it's also important to realize what you do for a living, right? And if is it a job or is it a career? If it's a career, it should be a lifestyle. And real estate is one of the few that actually gives you freedom to create that lifestyle. If I'm not even a quarter of the way smart enough to be like a neurosurgeon or something like that, but I'm boxed in at that point, right? Real estate really gives us all the freedoms that we can ask for. Think about it that way.
Well, and we talk to new agents and we tell them, find the things that you like to do. Find a sport you like to play, find a club you want to join, find some way to serve in your community, animal shelters, whatever, find things that you like. We've all heard the many Mike stories about getting a deal from whatever, picking up trash. I think you told me one time with the softball team, just talking to people. So whatever you're doing in your life, find something you enjoy, and then it's not as difficult.
Strong. I don't even know if this is true or not, because I've heard so many stories, but I heard a story about you one time, Mike, getting involved, you and Dean in the car together. I don't know who was driving or who wasn't driving, but y'all got pulled over. And when you got pulled over, you kind of just got out of the car and went to the police officer's car. Because that's like a standard thing to do. You go when you get into the patrol car, and
They get tased for that.
at least as the story goes, and this might not even be true, at least I preface that. As the story goes, Dean sits in car A for a while Mike sits in patrol car B, wondering what's going on, and then Mike gets back in the car with Dean. He's like, all right, let's rock. And Dean's like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? He's like, I got a listing appointment with him next week. No tickets, no reprimands, no tasing, just a listing appointment next week.
I would tell you that's got a whiff of truth in it. Okay? So, but I just think if you treat everybody like they're a buyer or a seller or a lead source, so I get a few little things kind of stuck with me, right? But if you would start treating people, and for those of you who say, I just can't work all the time, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. When you say you're working, whatever it is, when you say you're working, everybody's a buyer, seller, or lead source. And if you get in that habit, people are kind of everywhere. And see, I spend a little bit of money on stuff, and we try to buy leads, and we try to whatever. I get all my leads from talking to the last one, so I kind of keep it going. So they said if you do such a good job with the person and you condition them while you're working with them, that my job is to sell for you, get you the most money. Your job is to look out for me and find me the next one, because I'm busy taking care of you. So I'm gonna take care of you, you take care of me. And most people won't have that conversation. I tell Jake all the time, and the reason I tell Jake all the time, Jake listens to me. I love you, Jake. I love you. Jake listens to me. Yeah, it's as simple. Jake listens. And I'm like, Jake, give him a pathway. Bring some facts to the table and give them a path. Most people will do whatever you want if you give them a path, because no matter what personality types or no matter what, people that don't even like me give me deals. And see, that burns up some of our fellow realtors, because I had one guy that was suing me and Todd for putting a road in down in Old Church. He said we didn't have right to the road. I went to see him, and he was mad. He wouldn't come to the door. And so I went to see him, and I left him a note and said, hey, Mr. Whatever, you're gonna have to deal with me sooner or later. So we may as well hash it out on the porch and solve it. It's gonna save you some money, and you're gonna end up with a black eye out of this thing. I'm telling you, you're not gonna like how it's gonna end. So maybe we can just get to it. So dude calls me. I know he was at the damn house. He wouldn't come out. So I go back the next day, because he calls me that night. I go back. We sit on the porch, and he's telling me all the reasons why we can't do what we're gonna do. And I'm like, okay, here's the facts. I got a title policy. Here's the other facts. Todd's got construction plans approved at the county. So the county is with us. Plans are approved. Your choice right here, and it's gonna be, are we gonna put that road in and it's gonna be gravel? Or we gonna put that road in, you're gonna come to your senses, get everybody to agree, and we're gonna pave it. But either way, that road is going to our property, and we're gonna put those lots back there. I think you're better off with the pavement. If you're gonna hold to this, you and your neighbors are gonna fight the rest of your life, because everybody wants a paved road except you. He was worried cars would drive too fast. He said, well, it's a private road, we can put in speed bumps. Guy holds us to it, files a lawsuit. They threw it right out because he didn't have anything, and we put the road in. Well, we're putting the road in, and the gravel's going down. We got a new section. Guy calls me at the office, because back then they called the office. And I'll tell y'all a funny thing about voicemails, because y'all get a kick out of that. So the guy calls the office, and my grandma really couldn't hear very well. Very odd. We got a receptionist that can't hear. So she was explaining to me, and because she couldn't hear very well, she talked really loud. So it's this guy. I call him, and I'm thinking, oh, he's just giving me both barrels. He goes, hey, I should have listened to you. Every one of my neighbors hates my guts. because y'all putting in this gravel road and it should have been paved. My wife's ready to move, can you come over and sell my house tonight? I said,
Yes, sir.
I'll come over right now. Where are you at? He said, I'm at work. I said, I've already been in your house, okay. And see, I like to go to them when it's convenient for me instead of convenient for them, but I try to make it convenient for them. I said, I'll come to your work and we can get it all worked out right there. I don't have to come to your house tonight, because you go to somebody's house at 7 at night, it takes forever, and they talk to you, the kids going to bed, whatever. So I went to his office, got it all worked out, get a key, get the whole thing done, bring the listing agreement back, put it on his table, take all my dimensions. Tammy would believe I used to take all my own dimensions. Took all my own dimensions and got it all straight and listed the house. And so I think when you assume somebody is other than a buyer, a seller, or a lead source, you're messing yourself up. Because sometimes your enemies, you know, somebody you think is an enemy, somebody doesn't like you, or they don't really like me. You don't know. Give them a path. Just give them a chance.
We talk about it on the team sometimes. There's a saying we came up with, it's called, don't speculate, investigate, right? Speculation, filling in the blanks yourselves with no facts whatsoever, mostly emotion-based, really leads you to a bunch of turmoil. Mike's whole thing is I investigate, I find out, I ask the questions, I get in front of them, I get what I need. We kind of cut out that speculation gap. I actually think that's powerful advice in itself. And that, we're gonna rapid fire the last two questions. And the first is strictly for a brand new agent. I mean, like brand spanking new. What is one piece of advice? They don't know what to do, they don't know how to spend their time, but they're willing to show up. What's one piece of advice each one of you would give them?
Oh gosh, just one, huh?
Just one.
All right, this is just a pet peeve. Read the contract. I can't tell you how many folks sitting in this room probably have not read the contract. Yeah, read the contract.
Read the contract.
Yep.
Short and sweet.
I would say I did a ton of new homes when I was brand new, and like, you know, they had new home sites and they had no agents, so I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
So they just threw me in there, and I would say do as many open houses as you can, because the only way you learn to talk the talk is if you do it. So if you're in front of people and you're talking to them and just trying to cultivate as many leads as possible. And you know, the thing is, you meet that person, they may not be doing anything now, but I mean, we didn't have, I'm still not great at the computer, but we didn't have computers, we had index cards. And I'd keep them in stacks, and I'd have hot leads and I'd have some maybes. And I'd just go through those cards every time I was at an open house and call them. And I'd try to move them from one stack to the other, and I just stayed in touch with people. Wrote notes on the back of the card, and I was probably more productive doing it that way than I ever had been. So just staying in touch with people and getting in front of people is the way to do it.
Got to do it, for sure. What about you, Mike?
It's gonna sound so boring and so repetitive. Fire, 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 fire. Ready, aim, fire. And the problem with the industry is everybody likes to do the ready, they like to do the aim, and they call it work. I kept my life pretty simple, and I realized if you ain't firing, you ain't gonna get it. And I get more from remembering that. So everybody you talk to while you're working is a buyer, a seller, or a lead source. And all the busy work's gotta go. You guys are busy. Realtors busy work themselves to the poorhouse. That's what happens, because you plan, you tell war stories about it, okay? I put a big rubber band on my wrist, like a big fat one. I don't like jewelry at all, but I had a big fat rubber band, and I went to a Mike Ferry seminar. It's probably like 1990, okay? You're talking, take the country to the city, okay? I went to California. Wow, what an eye opener. What an eye opener, okay? I went to California, and they had a place that had yard beer glasses like this big, the big yard glasses. I was like, oh, this is a great state. Well, he said, you've got to stop all the crap. There's only 3 ways to make money. Find a buyer, find a seller, write a contract. Find a buyer, find a seller, write a contract. That's your income producing activities. And if you go more than 5 minutes without trying to find a buyer, find a seller, or write a contract, pull the rubber band. That sounds ridiculous, right? Pull the rubber band and give yourself a pop on the wrist. I mean, it hurts. I did it for like 3 or 4 days. I was dumb enough to actually do it in 3 or 4 days, right? And it was so sore to the touch. It was so sore to the touch. But I'm telling you, if you go more than 5 minutes without firing, you're doing it wrong. And the people that make, and maybe you don't want to make the most, but if your object is to make money and make a lot of money, you got to fire all day long.
I'm with that 100%. And as Mike was talking, I was like, I've got a fire in every appointment I'm in, and so do you, because what if Mike is the next one behind us? You know he's gonna fire, right? And what if you had the opportunity, and the only thing that was missing was the ask? You ran 3/4 of the way in a 1-mile race, and then you went and sat on the bench. Mike came in, ran 1 lap, high-fived somebody, and took the listen. You know, I always try to be aware of the guy that's hungrier than me, because it prevents me from being too complacent in certain situations. And I think although it's 3 different pieces of information, it's all from the same core, right? Real estate, success in real estate is not built on motion, it's built on action. And if you're in motion, you can talk about it all day, the war stories, the things that have happened. But if you're taking action, that's specific, people see it, and you don't really have to talk about it that much. You also don't have much time to talk about it because you're too busy being in action. I think that's strong. What I want to try to do from here to wrap up, same thing, rapid fire style, but let's say we've got a veteran. Let's say that we've got somebody that's trying to break the double-digit mold. They've been doing it a year or 2, and they can't seem to get 12, 14, 16 deals closed. What is something that you think an agent can do, or a couple of things they can do that'll help them hit that 12+ closed transaction mark each year?
Well, I'm gonna go to the old graffiti stuff. Was it tweet 5% of your day? So figure out what's gonna be the most productive, and for most of us, it's making the calls, because most of us avoid doing that. So figure out, there's something else I saw on some social media site, it was talking about changing your life in 18 minutes a day, but that's what, like 5% or whatever. So yeah, figuring out what works for you. So if it's open house is your thing, then make sure you're doing an open house every month. If it's making phone calls and you're not doing it, figure out what you're gonna do for that extra 20 minutes a day to make contacts, to fire. And be consistent. That's the thing we all struggle with. So.
Consistency for sure.
Yep.
What do you think, Howard?
I would say probably, Mike already touched on it, your best referral source is anyone you're currently doing a deal with, because they're talking about buying a new house. Like Jack just sold a young couple, they're getting married sometime soon, but all they're doing is talking about their new house that they're buying. So ask those people if they know of anybody that's looking to buy or something. You know, hey, I really appreciate you, can you help me find the next person? And because those people are always, you know, the whole thing about if you go shop for a car and you're looking at a white Honda, well, everywhere you go, you see white Hondas. Same thing with those people that are buying houses. They talk about houses, and people start talking to them. And
Bands, cars, doesn't matter, it's all
the other thing is you gotta teach them. And if you haven't done this, you know, how many people in here say, hey, I gave my friend your name, I told him to call you. How many people ever call you? You have to train them on the referral process. Say, I really appreciate that. I said, but here's what I found works best. If you tell them, like, hey, I got this great guy that'll help you sell your house or buy your house, how about if I have Rodney give you a call? And if they say yes, then you call me right away and I'll take good care of them. And then you call them. And you know, a lot of times, I don't know if y'all had this happen, but I'll call somebody 3 times and they won't call me back. And I'm like, so I call the referral source back. Hey, I don't want you to think that I'm falling down on the job. I've been trying to contact them, And then what do? They call the person up, hey man, I told you to, why don't you call them back? And boom, they call right back. So now they're helping you in the deal. So keep them involved in the process. If something goes wrong, you might wanna, you don't wanna tell their business, but you might wanna cut it off at the pass and say, hey, we had a little issue, here's the deal. So they don't, cause you want them to know the real story. And another thing is, Pam and I have had this happen. Don't tell anybody anything until it's like a done deal, because some people are weird about their privacy. You could all be friends, and you could say, well, hey, I'm meeting Steve to go show him a house, and then the person gets mad like, you weren't supposed to say anything about we were looking at houses. We haven't told anybody yet. And you're getting ready to stick a sign in their yard the next day. So just be smart about what you do.
Well, I'll just piggyback on the training part. Like I said, coming into the business when I did, they were already well established. Most of my friends are old Hanover people, and I'd be calling them, they were like, why are you calling me? You know I'm not moving, leave me alone. I mean, it sometimes takes more than one, and these can be your closest friends. Because as I said, I was a horrible referral source for 20 years. But it does take a process, and sometimes it's having a direct conversation, but training them, and you'll have to gear it to each relationship. But I had this one friend in particular, she literally said, why are you calling me? I'm not moving anywhere. And so I had to train her on, you might know somebody, you might work with somebody, or whatever. So it's a process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bring someone.
I think the turning point for me was getting caught up on the results. And see, it sounds bad, and everybody wants to go the other way, right? You wanna be patient, and you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. I think you gotta stop being patient with you, because being so patient just makes you like everybody else. Everybody else goes home at 4:30, you go home at 4:30. Everybody else gets to work at 9:30, you get there at 9:30. You gotta turn it around. You gotta be different than all the rest of them. And I tell people too often, put a damn sign in the yard. If you're putting signs in the yard, you're winning. So for me, and see, my problem is I like doing everything, and I like it all. I like doing everything. I don't love one thing. I just like everything. I like recruiting. I like going to lunch. I like working with agents. I like all sorts of stuff, right? Tammy goes, we don't have any listings. And I go, oh, put a damn sign in the yard. So everything I do then is, what am I gonna do? Put a sign in the yard. And like 4 weeks ago, I said, okay, I've been goofing off enough. I'm gonna put some signs in the yard. And everything I do that day is to get a sign in the yard. And the funny part is, it's that easy. It's that easy, because Mike Ferry used to say, you hit what you're aiming for. Most times you ain't aiming for nothing all day long. You don't aim at anything all day long. So I always say, take the rifle off your back, because if you're like hunting, Keith's a big hunter. If you've got a rifle on a strap and you're doing something, you take the rifle off your back. That's when you get to the good part, right? So when you take dead aim and you're gonna do it, that's the kind of day you need to have. And I think I can get a listing every day. And if I try, it's freaking amazing. If I try to get a listing, I can almost always get a listing. And then I don't know why I keep taking my eye off the ball, because I do something. I might go to Midlothian, I might whatever. Heck, Jake might show me a bunch of videos. Jake's always showing me videos. But get a listing, get a listing, get a listing. And I think if you stop being so soft on you, because the tendency is to say, it's okay. I'm young, I got plenty of time. Or I'm old, it's not gonna change a whole lot no matter what I do. I say that a lot. Hey, dice are rolled, baby. Stop being patient with yourself and get a listing every day.
That's strong advice. As they were talking, there's a book called Atomic Habits. It's a pretty strong book. A little wordy, like not the easiest read in the world, but one thing that jumped out at me, and one thing I did, it has something called a habits scorecard. And you write down everything, start to finish, your whole day.
super embarrassing, super clarifying on what you do versus what you claim you do. If they're the same, rock and roll. I am willing to put 20 bucks up with anybody in here that they're probably not going to be the same once you get it front and center. But the way a habit scorecard works is from the time you wake up in the morning until the time you go back to bed, you really do write everything down. Maybe it's 5 pages, I don't know, maybe it's 1 page. That's probably not a very busy day. Positive habits, right? They get a check mark. You got to be real with yourself though. Negative habits, we all got them. We all have some stuff that we shouldn't be doing or whatever. X's, right? And then neutral habits, things that right now they have a place in life. We don't know if they need to come or go, whatever. Those are equals, right? So do this tomorrow, the next day, whenever. Write all of your habits down and then just be real with yourself on what your score is. I don't have a score for you. I can't tell you like what an A or a B is. I wasn't like that good of a student anyway. But I can tell you that it will speak to you somehow when you're done. Maybe it's a pat on the back. Maybe it's a little extra motivation to tweak that most important part of the day. But the advice that Cindy and these guys gave you today, it's raw, true advice that's going to take you to success in real estate, but none of it means anything, and it's all just words if you all don't do anything with it. So that is the only action step we have from here. Do your habit scorecard if you want to, but take this advice that we got today and go out there and do something with it, because at the end of the day, y'all are the future. You know, y'all are kind of who they're counting on to carry the legacy of Hometown forward, and we need to get out there and kick some ass. Cool?
Right.
Nice.
Nice.